I can't take it anymore. I'm so excited. Brian, get pumped.
Wait, why? What happened?
We're hosting a meditation retreat.
What? When did this happen?
Ladies and gentlemen, for your enjoyment, for your pleasure, for your continued advancement on the path and connectedness with the nature of the universe,
Ryan Lemmerman and Corey Hardiker present
Focus and Flow, an immersive meditation retreat.
August 25th and 26th at the Alma Community Life Center in Vero Beach, Florida.
Saturday, Sunday.
It's a 2-day mindfulness and meditation retreat.
I thought you said it was in advance.
We're not going to retreat from the self. Instead of a retreat, it's an advance. We're going towards yourself. We're taking it back. We're sticking it to the retreat. We're going to learn about the self, how we define ourselves, and the stories that we tell about ourselves that are half-truths, accepting what has been and moving forward. You will learn meditations and mindsets to help you focus and flow in your life.
Save the date. Focus and Flow, an immersive meditation retreat, August 25th and 26th. Get your tickets at focusandflow.eventbrite.com. That's focusandflow.eventbrite.com. Hey, it's Brian here. Last time on Mindfulness of Doom, you listened to part 1 of an episode titled Death, Happiness, and Robots. You got to hear some of the world's happiest people talk about death, the impending doom of humanity, and how we might get through it together. Thankfully, part 2 is about, well, you guessed it, happiness. For this episode, we've selected exclusive interviews with leaders from the 2018 World Happiness Festival who have a slightly brighter approach to mindfulness and well-being. You'll hear the voice of the Future of Happiness author and positive psychologist Amy Blankson as she coordinates the making of the world's largest happiness wall. Then you'll listen to Laura Coppedge, marketing director for LiveHappy, on the ironic chaos of marketing happiness and how she's teaching the lessons she's learned to her children. After that, we'll hear from Dr. Juan Jose Reyes about how meditation has been integrated into conventional medicine and how being in harmony with nature has contributed to his happiness. International Positive Education Network's Ian Pickin gives an overview of positive psychology and how daily practices of gratitude and kindness can transform every individual on the planet. Psychologist Dr. Edith Shiro shares the unconventional journey she's taken and the internal struggles she still faces despite being a mental health professional. Finally, meditation teacher Savanti Haya describes what it's like to grow up in her teenage years cultivating her personal happiness despite the contradicting expectations of her friends and family.
Welcome to Mindfulness of Doom, a weekly podcast about life, peaceful living, and existential dread. You're not lost. Everyone's faking it, and the purpose of life is, enjoy the show.
My name is Amy Blankson. I'm here at the World Happiness Fest because this is where all the cool people are today. People full of ideas. They're excited to connect, and they're also trying to make the world a better place. So I can't imagine anyone better to hang out with. So, and I'm awesome because I have awesome people around me.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you get to show up through the people in your life.
Absolutely. I think of my work as connecting people with resources and ideas, and that brings me more joy than anything else. So that is a fulfillment of what I'm meant to do.
Tell me what you're holding in your hand right now.
I am holding quite a few pens and markers of all different shades and colors because we are creating the world's largest wall looking at what the future of happiness could be. And I just claimed that. I'm not sure if that's 100% true, but I'll go with it. So we have about 150 people here who are writing down their ideas and their vision for what the future looks like. And we've got everything here from one world, one people, beating with a common heart. We've got people writing about felicidad desde el amor a los niños por un mundo mejor. We've got people who are writing about raising happy kids, about capitalism, about living in the present. And I think that these ideas, they're so different, but they're so beautiful because by putting your vision out here, that's how we make these things happen. You write it down, you're 42% more likely to make it happen by setting your intention. And I think that is the heart of getting things started in motion.
Yeah. And the nature of happiness is it's an individual phenomenon that can be felt at the collective. And so here what I'm witnessing unfold is a collective visioning for the future of happiness.
too.
Oh, you've gotten marker all
and
over
a
your
marker
creature.
all over me, too.
Amazing.
Now I need to make an artwork in your shirt.
Yes.
Like immediately.
Take off all the caps and
drop.
Finish
drops.
and do something beautiful.
I love it.
Just, like the poster from here.
I love it. I'll just blend into the wall now.
Marker colors on your shirt. That's happening.
I think we're going to go there.
Amy, would you suppose that given the collective visioning and the writing down of our goals for happiness in the future, that we as humanity would be 42% more likely to achieve that goal?
I think only if we share that vision. If it is just kept with the people who are here at this conference, I think that we would be sorely under-equipped. But if we're able to take this message to the people who couldn't be here, then we can start to make a ripple effect.
What do you plan to do with this wall that's here?
I believe that this wall is part of a broader project that the bee community is going to be taking to schools all over Mexico and be able to share on social media so that other people can get inspired. This does not have to be the one and only wall. Hopefully there will be many others where people can capture their ideas as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what do you suppose might be the biggest challenges or roadblocks to sharing this vision with the world?
I think that people are skeptical. They've been so hurt and so disappointed over time with seeing vision not pan out that they're almost afraid to start. It becomes paralyzing. But what we've discovered is that sometimes it takes just the smallest action to make a big change. In fact, with Google, when they've invested so much money and resources into researching the things that create the biggest change, it's not a particular training program. It's not a massive corporate unfolding of new policies and procedures. It is tiny habits with micro changes. And so that's what we're trying to do here, is create micro changes in our life, starting with ourselves.
What's your biggest challenge to experiencing your own personal happiness?
I definitely start to doubt myself. It's self-doubt that gets in the way, or a negative voice that whispers in the back of your mind that this isn't good enough, or this isn't sustainable, or this isn't something that other people would be interested in. And those are the voices that I'm trying to bring to the surface so I can recognize them and say, farewell, no more, it's time to move on.
What would you recommend to somebody else who's dealing with that same thing in terms of their own personal happiness?
Yeah, I had a wonderful life coach named Chandra Moyer who started me on this path a few years ago. And in our session of talking together, thank you, she and I came up with this idea of capturing the bees and releasing the fireflies. And the idea is that the bees are those voices that kind of hum in the background of your mind, that they have been around for so long that you almost don't even recognize them humming in the back. But by recognizing what they are, then you can capture them and you can put them where you can still see them, you know they're there, but you say it's not your time. This is not something that's helpful. And instead what I want to do is release the light from the fireflies. I want to get them out into the world to inspire and to create change. And it is until you let go of the bees that you can't make space for those fireflies. So that's my personal metaphor for how I'm trying to create change in my own life as well.
Thank you so much for sharing all that with me.
Sure thing. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
My name is Laura Coppedge. I am the Director of Marketing and Operations for LiveHappy, which is a media company, primarily a magazine and a podcast. We also have a clothing online store with gifts and accessories. Today, I'm awesome because I'm here in a beautiful space and a beautiful place, being able to calm down after the craziness of city life and work life.
Tell me what you struggle with.
Priorities. I try to get everything done and try to do too many things at once. And then I kind of freeze and then nothing gets done. So I'm a kind of a cyclical planner. Like I find myself getting really organized and really planned, and then I get really, really busy and all the planning falls apart. And then that kind of goes into chaos, and then it has to like circle back around.
Got it. Do you have periods within those cycles where you can be productive?
Oh, no, absolutely. And part of the problem is when I get really productive, when the doing part happens, the planning part slips away. It's just that balance between productivity and strategy, actually, is probably the best way to look at it. And like at opposite ends, it's fine, but then you turn it just 90 degrees and it's off.
Yeah. What does it feel like to constantly go through that cycle?
I don't consider myself a constant kind of person, so it's kind of comfortable for me. I mean, I think that's just who I am. I go through different stages, but as I'm going into something, or rather when I'm trying to come out of it, and it's that change, that's where it's uncomfortable. But that's when you know you have to change, when you're uncomfortable.
Yeah. And tell me about the work that you're doing with LiveHappy and how that kind of brought you here and what that does for people.
LiveHappy, our mission is to make your world a happier place. We started off with the mission of making the world a happier place, but we realized we were really concentrating on educating individuals. And then for all of us, it really is about our world. Our worlds may be parallel, right next to each other, but we all have our own worlds. And so our mission is to make your world a happier place. Making you happier it's like the contagion effect. It makes people around you happier. So that's a big part of our mission, is about sharing happiness. Yes. You can't gift happiness to other people, but you can share it. So one of our missions around the International Day of Happiness, which is coming up, is our campaign is called Happy Acts. We have a 30 days in March where we just ask people to do happy acts in general. We do have one a day that we can suggest, but our big International Day of Happiness ask is for people to put up a wall somewhere and ask people the question, how do you share happiness? We have one of those boards here. Starting yesterday, really, and through the next week, we have 600 of these walls across the United States and in different countries. So we ended up getting all 50 states and 20 countries. But I haven't looked at the map in 3 days, so I'm hoping that's even higher. My goal,
maybe to 1,000 by now.
Well, my goal was 500. We reached 500 on Wednesday. I left work Thursday and flew here. And on Friday, I heard from my employees that we had reached 600. So, and I think some of them probably are so getting prepared that they haven't added themselves to our list, which generates a map. It'll be fascinating to see what we actually end up.
Where are these walls located and how are they helpful?
Everywhere from somebody having people over and doing it in their own home. So those are private walls. That is something we just kind of introduced this year. We really upped our schools. So we have over 250 schools participating in that 600 number. Whether it's a classroom or the entire school, or we even have a couple of districts participating in that effort. We had one in Dallas yesterday. That was a large orange wall in one of our busiest malls. We teamed up with Crayola Experience and the local children's theater. Did some entertainment and fun interactions there. So all sorts of different levels of people do in their office buildings on walls. We have them. Our corporate sponsor has one in each department. They have actually those walls, like the whiteboard walls you can write on. Yeah. So they've created them on that. We have some large orange walls, but we really encourage people to create them however they want and whatever space works for them. So it's really cool. It's fun. I probably enjoy looking at the hashtag Happy Acts, which is what we ask people to post on social, and just looking at all the different ways that people are so creative.
Yeah, you mentioned the words fun and enjoyment. I think when it comes to happiness, coming from if I were sitting in a dark place, thinking like, oh, this is so silly, why are we doing all of this? But like the real value in all of that I can see is the feeling that it generates.
And I've done this for 5 years now, and I really think that the crux of it and why it ends up being meaningful for people and why they keep doing it year after year and why we're growing is about connection. Because in order to do something like that, you have to have a conversation, you're interacting with people, and that's why we say it's about sharing happiness on several levels. The connection is so important, and that's one of the things science has really looked at more and more, that happier people are the people that have deep personal relationships and connections. And so even the light touch, it's getting up, it's getting out, it's having conversations. Even if they're light, conversations, even if we are talking about happiness at just the fun and ice cream level, to start off with. I mean, that's okay. That goes somewhere from there.
You mentioned that the mission of LiveHappy is to help other people make their worlds happy. But what about your world? How is that going? And how has being a part of your company helped you to create happiness within yourself?
Next month, April, one of my really good friends was at my 40th birthday party and said, I was stay-at-home mom at that point. I'd been a stay-at-home mom, had 3 kids within 3.5 years, so life was hectic and crazy. And I was getting depressed. I wasn't quite there yet, but I wasn't happy. I had been isolated almost for too long. And she came up to me at the party and said, hey, I have this company I'm about to start. If you want to do some freelance. So my assignment was to go out and research happiness, to create a database of who's writing about it, who's talking about it, who's blogging about it. Are there movies? Are there videos? So I kind of did this. And then 5 years later, here I am running marketing and operations for them. It has changed how, there are certain things that really have changed how I talk with my children, how I approach with my children. I've had this conversation a couple times in the last couple of weeks, so this is an interesting question that you asked. I realized recently that even though I was doing the things I'd learned, and my children were mirroring me, that was obvious, but I wasn't actively teaching it to them. So I've actually been altering some of what I've been doing in my family the last few weeks, and having more of the open conversations about it, because I talk about it all day long at home, and I wasn't really talking about it when I got to the house. And there's one of my children is having a really hard time with anxiety, and I'm like talking to a counselor with him. I'm like, I know almost all of this stuff. I have the resources for this, but I haven't been actively teaching it to him. So that's an interesting part too. That is again the sharing part of it. Right. When you reflect and realize you're pushing this and doing this for some other people, and you think, well, my life has gotten so much better, and then I stopped and realized that I'm not sharing it properly. So it's all fascinating. We're all constantly learning and constantly developing. So 5 years in, it's made a huge difference in my life, and I can see that there's a long way to go.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for acknowledging that and sharing that with us. And I really appreciate you on your journey toward happiness, however that's going to turn out. And you're right. This is a work in progress for all of us, for everybody here. And there was a tendency when I first arrived, oh my God, I'm going to be around all these really happy people, myself included. Like, these are my contemporaries. And the more and more I dive in and have these conversations, each and every one of us has our own insecurities and our perceived faults and judgments, and we carry things with us still, and at the same time, what I'm witnessing unfold here as we share these kinds of stories with each other is that we are awakening little by little. The more baggage we let go of, the more we're able to acknowledge where we've been and forgive ourselves, the further we can progress along our path more quickly. And it's such a blessing that you have 3 wonderful children that you get to share that with. And they will be where you are at the age they are now. So you just saved them how many years?
A lot. I'm sure they're, not, it'll be interesting. That's the interesting part about growing kids, constantly, raising them, nurturing them as to watch how they change. And you do hope that you get them started at a further point than you were emotionally. I guess all of us want it for financially and all that other kind of stuff too. But I believe there's that Lennon story, or I think that it was said, when he was a boy, somebody asked him what he wanted to be, and he said happy, and he got in trouble, But I truly am a parent that is what I want my kids to be, and that's what I acknowledge and teach. And it's not about, the money or the success. It is about fitting those things into your life properly.
Thanks for sharing that lesson. Laura, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you, Brian.
Nice to meet you as well.
My name is Juan Jose Reyes, and I'm here at the World Happiness Festival in San Miguel to enjoy, to learn, to connect with people. I will be talking about mindfulness and meditation and how that affects our lives and how it can help us to be happy, or at least emotionally balanced, achieve some sort of inner peace, or deal with our struggles a little bit better. I became very interested in meditation a long time ago. I started practicing for my own self, and I am a doctor. I practice medicine for 20 years, and I've seen how over the last few years how meditation can help people prevent all those chronic illnesses that we're using so many medications to treat.
Knowing that you were a doctor and you have that background, and knowing what I know about the medical community and how things like this are introduced that are not conventional medicine,
Yes.
What kind of response did you get when you began to incorporate this into your practice, or maybe recommend it to your patients and even use it for yourself?
Yeah, definitely for myself, it made a big difference. I started using meditation for myself to really, in a period of time in my life, 12 years ago, that it was very stressful. I was having anxiety episodes, and as everybody knows, anxiety is not a very good feeling. And now it seems like an epidemic. And so I think maybe like 10 years ago, you would talk about these things, and it was like still, okay, well, we don't really know anything about that. Now, because of all the research that has been done the last 10 years about the benefits of meditation, I think people in hospitals and healthcare settings, doctors, are really asking about it. Even psychologists, that their patients are asking them to, okay, what is this meditation thing? And so I'm glad to see that, because it's very helpful. It helped me a lot in my personal life. So, and I'm very happy to see in hospitals that they're creating integrative medicine departments to help people, to bring all this, what it was called before alternative medicine. Now it's more integrative medicine, because we're really kind of mixing it with the regular medicine, traditional medicine. So I'm very happy to see that.
How did you come to become involved in all of this?
I met Luis a year ago at the Happiness Summit in Miami, and we started talking, and then he announced that he was going to Bhutan. And for some reason, I became interested in Bhutan 12 years ago when I first started meditation. I learned about this country called Bhutan. And since then, I've been saying, I will go there someday. And I've tried to go many times. And I made plans. It didn't happen. So this time when Luis organized a trip, and it just, everything came together. So we did the trip, and we spent 12 days in Bhutan. And that's when we started talking about the Happiness Festival, and he learned about what I was doing and with mindfulness and stuff. So that's how I became involved, and I'm very happy to be here.
What was the most profound thing that happened to you on that trip?
It was such a remote place, and at one point we were just really like 10,000 feet high in the mountains, like 7 hours away from anything that we would call like a town or a established city. That it was a moment of just letting go of all the and at that point I realized like all that anxiety that I used to have in the past, that has transformed now into more like acceptance, is just being there. But if I have to recall one moment, it was when we were hiking to this monastery at the top of a mountain. It's perched on a cliff, and it's like a 3-hour hike at 10,000 feet, very hard hike. I became in such a harmony with nature at that point. I just felt the entire nature, the trees, the dirt, the rocks, the mountain. It was just like a fantastic experience, being in such harmony with nature and accepting. And it was at that point accepting that nature is actually with me, and I need to be connected with it most of the time. And right after that, we met with Sandhu also in Bhutan, and he had talked about what the elements of happiness, and he had mentioned it yesterday too, and one of them is being in harmony with nature. One of the elements of happiness of being in harmony with nature. So it really changed my outlook, and now I think I was taking for granted all the places, all the things that we see in nature, and that we just don't even pay attention. We just walk around, whether it be the beach, the sand, the trees, wherever we are, there's nature everywhere. And we need to be in harmony with nature, yeah.
What is currently your biggest challenge in terms of your own personal development?
I think it's just keep doing it and just keep talking to people and just keep learning at the same time. You know, Bhutan was a learning experience for me. You know, I went to learn and I learned a lot of things. Here, I'm here to learn. And as I'm giving these programs to people, I'm learning. And so I think it's the challenge just to keep doing it, because sometimes, and I've seen in meditation classes, sometimes people show up for like one and then they don't come back. They just want to try it. And I think there is this, and I always mention, I think there is this tendency that we are talking about mindfulness, meditation as a relaxation technique. And it's really not. And relaxation happens as a side effect of it. But if we put I'm going to meditate to relax, I think that brings the wrong approach to it, because as we all know, sometimes you sit in meditation and like 30, 40 minutes later, it's worse than before because your mind just took you, and it's like, oh, I didn't relax. This doesn't work because I didn't relax. So I think that's the challenge, just so people stick with it and stay with it through the process and allow the process. And not just see it as a relaxation method. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and that's why I'm doing this podcast as well. Is people are generally afraid of what comes up while they're sitting in silence, and it is not a feel-good thing all of the time.
Right.
And there's a difference between mindfulness meditation and relaxation techniques, and I think you hit the nail right on the head. And for anybody who's listening, I agree with you. Stick with it. Is there anything you'd like to share with somebody who is seeking personal happiness and may have been on the path that you were once on?
The concept of happiness, and like we talked about here, and people talk about, can be different things, and you can achieve. It really comes down for me in happiness as inner peace and well-being. And what Sandhu mentioned, those three elements of happiness, I keep bringing that as the concept of happiness for me, and those were being of service to others, being in harmony with nature, and developing our human potential and values and wisdom. So if we have that as our framework for our happiness or to achieve inner peace, I think we can look at the things that we're doing and really see, is this going to help me achieve that? And sometimes we realize it's not. And then the hard part is like, okay, maybe I need to stop. And that is the hard part to do. And sometimes people need help. So talking, being in groups, in this type of things, talking to people who are doing the same thing, helps us go through that hump of like, oh my God, I need to stop doing what I'm doing because it's not working. But I've been doing it for so long. So, so talk to people, learn meditation, share, open up. It's hard to do, but it's work worth doing.
Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Glad that you're here, glad we met, and
Hi, well, I'm Ian Pickin, and I work with IPEN, who's the International Positive Education Network, and I help build partnerships for that and help the event that we're doing, particularly next June, come to fruition and make sure that we've got the right people there talking about the right things and collaborating with the right things.
Got it. So IPEN is about positive psychology, correct?
Exactly. It's taking positive psychology and put it into the education space. So giving teachers the access to resources that they can use to implement and embed positive psychology into their classrooms, and give children the opportunity to build their own character skills and their own character strengths and become happier.
Fantastic. So it sounds like you guys are organizing a coalition or all the material for teachers to be able to teach the next generation of people in the realm of positivity. For those who aren't familiar with what positive psychology is, could you explain a little bit about it and why it's called positive psychology?
Sure. I mean, psychology over the years has focused on a negative state being brought back to a kind of a base level state that doctors, that psychologists all feel that we should be in this base level. Positive psychology says, well, hold on a minute. If everyone's at zero level, why don't we try and take everyone up to plus 10? Rather than just bringing from minus 10 to 0, let's try everyone bring them up to plus 10. Then if they slip a little bit, they're still at a plus point. So actually their lives are going to be much better in the long run.
Right.
So positive psychology looks at this, and it takes different character traits such as resilience, such as optimism, such as gratitude, and teaches people how to implement these in their daily lives through really very simple exercises and activities that build up over time to give them that additional happiness, and to be able to have a much better way of coping with the world, much better resilience, determination, grit, and happiness overall.
Right. So it's actually teaching people the tools to self-generate positivity within themselves, such as gratitude, or what about how does kindness play into all of this?
Kindness is a very strong part of many of the different aspects of positive psychology. So if you look at things like empathy, if you look at gratitude, if you look at hope and optimism, all of those will necessitate a degree of kindness within them. And once you start taking on board all those different things, you will actually feel like you want to be kinder to people, and the fact that you're being kinder will reciprocate in people being kinder back to you. Yeah. So it's a positive circle rather than a vicious circle. It's a very positive thing.
Do these tools equip people who, let's say, get into the negative side of the scale to be able to handle whatever they're dealing with in the way that, let's say, conventional psychology could, or maybe differently?
I think, yes, there are certainly, for anyone, whatever state they're in, whatever kind of level they're in, there are ways, there are activities, there are things that you can do from the positive psychology workbook as such that are going to make you feel better. And that might be just practicing a little mindfulness at times. It might be practicing gratitude. I mean, it's now well known that if you are grateful, not only to the person receiving that gratitude benefit, but actually you benefit as well, and you are happier in yourself. So if you're in a negative state and you start embracing that, then you are going to build yourself up anyway. That's not to say that it can cure all types of mental illness or such like, but for everybody on the planet, if they started to embrace and just start to using positive psychology techniques and strategies, they will increase their own personal well-being.
What were some of the biggest challenges that you faced earlier on in your life that got you to where you are right now?
I think my biggest challenge was at school, and I really didn't engage with school myself. I was actually asked to leave school when I was 16, and I was kind of glad of that. And although I went into a little bit of further education, I was never comfortable with that. But I found that I was much more comfortable in the workplace. And the reason for that, looking back now, is that the schools really didn't engage me, and they didn't look at me as a person. They just looked at, this is the work, get it done, and there's no reason why you can't get it done. So I kind of, and I fell back into working in the education space purely by accident. But actually, since I have done, I found that by helping other people learn, or to help teachers and schools to put these things in place, would have helped me when I was younger, and would have helped me achieve more academically. So, hey, let's help the next generation and the generation that come after that.
Is there anything that you would want to share with somebody who might be interested in exploring this field, or perhaps somebody who is suffering from something like chronic anxiety or depression, and how they might get access to tools or resources through either your network or other positive psychology networks?
Sure. I mean, again, I think that positive psychology is a fantastic tool for everybody, and everybody can use it whatever state you're in. That doesn't mean to say that it is a direct replacement for professional care from professional psychologists or other people. However, if you want to start looking at this, then all you need to do is Google positive psychology, look up positive psychology activities, positive psychology strategies, positive psychology resources, and you will find those in plenty. For education specifically, IPEN, the International Positive Education Network, is a great place to start. It's a not-for-profit organisation. You can become a member, and then you will become a member of a worldwide network of people that are all passionate about giving the chance to people, younger people now.
Awesome. Ian, thank you so much for sharing with me.
No, thank you very much.
My name is Edith Shiro. I am here because I am just being in this wonderful, amazing, magical place called San Miguel, and I'm spreading love and happiness, and I'm holding space for transformation. That's what I am, a space holder for transformation. That's my role in life. Honestly, that's what I do. I hold space for transformation and manifestation.
When did you first learn that about yourself?
Ooh, I didn't learn it so much. I started feeling it more in my body. I've always done it, but now I'm embracing it. I would say a couple of years ago when I started doing some journeys, outside journeys and inside journeys, that kept me really, really connected and integrated in an amazing kind of way. It was a big transformation for me, and being more truthful to who I am.
So it sounds like you've been able to turn that into a little bit of a profession.
I've always been a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, yes.
I didn't realize that.
Yes, I am. I've always been, since I'm in high school. My friends used to call me the psychologist in high school. Always. So I always knew this is what I was going to do. But lately, that's why I call myself a psychologist, but now I call myself a space holder for transformation, because it's beyond like the conventional word of psychology. And we're moving. And that's why I thought, I've been working, I am my own tool, so I work on myself all the time to be better and better and better in what I do. But I started doing these journeys, like to the Machu Picchu and Peru, to the concentration camps in Poland and Lithuania, to Bhutan, and a journey in Bhutan, to all these amazing places, to El Camino de Santiago in Spain. And somehow those external journeys also became internal journeys, and they really created an amazing integration in myself. So I'm very grateful and blessed.
What's one of the most powerful journeys that you've ever given yourself?
Honestly, it's the everyday journey that I'm in. I can only say that every time, and I mean, every day is a different journey for me. And I can talk to you about amazing trips that I've been in. But those are, you can go on a trip, on vacation, but that's not really a journey. A journey is like how present you are and wherever you are. So when I'm completely present, it's a journey. So it can be in everyday, life where I am in Miami, New York, wherever, or it can be in the Himalayas, in Bhutan, and that's a journey.
What internal resistances to being who you are do you face on a regular basis?
Ooh, thank you. That's a very good question. I think I have fears that I still have yet to conquer. Like there are times where I'm very insecure, and I come from a family that has a lot of expectations, social expectations. So there's like a big voice around me that it's like a social pressure voice that I have to fight every day. It's like how to please others. And that's when I have to please others and have other people's expectations, my family, my childhood friends, I stop being myself and I start being whatever they want me to be. That's a big block for being who I am.
What sorts of things do your family say to you while you're on your journeys?
Right now they're more understanding, but it's like I'm crazy, I'm so different, like what am I doing, I'm wasting my time, or they don't really say that, they don't really understand exactly what is it that I'm doing. Now they're beginning more to understand, and it's funny because now I'm like much more as a public speaker, like I'm on TV a lot and on radio and all that in the last few years. They're like, oh wow, I guess what she's doing is really important. But I've been doing this all my life, but now they're getting it more, so I'm very grateful for the support. They're very supportive, actually.
That's great. Yeah, I'm thinking about like what it would be like to tell. You're from Israel, yes?
My family is.
Your family is. So
yeah.
like when telling your Israeli family that, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go and hold space for people. Yeah, but what are you gonna make a living, right?
Yeah. Exactly. They're like, what do you mean? What is it that you do exactly? Not even as a psychologist. They're like, but what is it exactly that you do? Because we don't really get it. And yes, they have very much more conventional ways of like understanding life, which I totally respect and understand. But when I go and say, no, I'm gonna do moving meditation and start dancing, and they're like they don't understand. Oh, I'm going to Bhutan to discover happiness. The gross national happiness, and they're like, what? The gross what?
Why would anybody do that? What about your job? Like, how are you going to?
Exactly.
Yes.
When are you going to stop volunteering? You're going to start earning money. I'm like, I do both. I'm in abundance and prosperity all the time, and I get to do what I love. I'm playing and working all the time.
I'm seeing this as it's a common theme with many people here, that they're here and they're happy that they're here, and there's all of the life that's back home that we have to attend to or mitigate the challenges around.
Yeah, I mean, that's why coming to places like this in which it's a contained space in which like-minded people come together, it's very special because you create an environment that you don't have at home. I mean, you can create at home, but the synchronicity, having all of us together in one space, it's unusual. So there's something about this that gives you a lot of energy and like satisfaction, so then you can take home and continue. The idea is that you would continue, not that it stops here after the event ends.
And then what would you say to somebody who asks you, well, how do I take what I have here and who I am here and be that in an environment where there's absolutely no agreement with what that is or how valuable it is?
Yeah, no. This is exactly what I do every day, which is becoming more conscious. It's like awakening, like wake up to who you are.
What does that mean? Right, for somebody who doesn't know, like, how do you explain that?
It's really beginning to listen to your inner voice without having to have everybody else's voice around you, beginning to be curious about who your true self is. We have many selves inside of us, but to be curious about, who am I really? What my true self is? What is my inner voice telling me? What is my higher self, my wisdom that I carry every day? Listening to that, pausing, having space, like being more quiet when you come home and your crazy routine every day, to really realize what is your mind, your heart telling you.
I would look at it from the dark side and say, well, where am I lying to myself? And what impact does that have on me? And am I willing, ready, and able to give that up to reach the level of peace or freedom or happiness that I've been seeking? Because there is no other way. There's no way that I would have to fake happiness if I were to hold on to my inauthenticities about who I really am. If I just sucked it up and continued to work the job or hang out with the people or whatever it is that I was doing from my past, happiness would not be possible.
That's true, but a lot of people live, including you and I maybe at some point, in inauthenticity, not being their true selves. And I believe, and that it's been my professional experience, that unless you're suffering a lot, you don't change it. Unless you're really truly in suffering and misery and feeling doomed, you don't have enough motivation and energy, or create enough space and time in your life to change it. And only when people are really, really, really in pain, emotional pain, psychological pain, or physical pain, unfortunately social pain, that they say, wow, I can't tolerate this anymore, I have to do something about it. I want to think that there are other ways of changing, and I'm actually in the process of exploring that more and doing some research on that. Like, why do we have to get to pain and suffering and feeling so inauthentic with ourselves that we can't stand it anymore, to begin to listen to ourselves and to be more true, and to begin to be more like or to wake up, to be awakened. You hear these stories when people are like, I went to like this horrible trauma, this, I was, rock bottom life, and that's when they start waking up, and where they, right? I'm sure you've heard.
Yeah, the crisis creates the impetus for transformation, and I wonder that too. I'm at a place in my own journey where I can see the little things, and I'm willing to sit with them and process them. But not everybody's there. I've made it a habit. But for somebody who is not willing to look at that, it seems like it has to get so bad that you can no longer ignore it.
I know. I mean, that's what I've seen, unfortunately. But I think we're also in a place in the world in which, as much as there's so much more suffering, because there's a lot more awakening. So maybe by contagious, even people that don't have to go through so much suffering, if you're hanging out with other people that are willing to share their these insightful moments and this awakening like you, and sharing it to others, with they're open to receiving it. So that would be maybe a different way of achieving that.
I've been relying on that. People like you or me will walk around and say the right thing at the right time to the right person who may not be in a state of crisis but has been asking a particular question, and something will click, and they'll be sent further along their path.
No, I also think we're much, because of globalization and technology, all of us are so much more exposed to so much more information and other people's experiences. So I'm counting on millennials and the generation that comes after that to be much more aware and really getting a lot more from the world and what's happening around, to really start at a different point, not go through Second World War or crisis and depression, but to start from a wellness place and move more forward and evolve.
And may our next World War be a lot more graceful and happy than the previous ones.
Amen to that. Coming from a mindfulness of doom, I want to honor the negative and the positive, the shadow and the light. There's no light without shadow. There's no enlightenment without doom, So,
Edith, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. You're a light in this world. Thank you.
My name is Sevanti.
Sevanti, why are you here?
Well, I came here because I saw about this festival on the internet, and I really was excited to meet other people that are interested in happiness, to see what this is all about. And I'm a volunteer, so I really wanted to know the behind the scenes kind of thing, because I really want to learn how to do my own workshops and my own let's say workshops, because I don't know the other word. So yeah, I'm really happy, and it's really meeting my expectations.
That's awesome. And tell me how you got interested in happiness.
Oh my God, who isn't interested in... Look, the thing is, everyone's interested in happiness, of course. Just, I don't think we have the tools to know where we can get happiness from. So I was lucky enough to, when I was 17, to find this thing called A Course in Miracles. I initially became interested because I had an aunt that was super grumpy, she was a really hard woman, and she fought with my grandmother, and they didn't speak maybe for 8 years. And one day, my same aunt came, her eyes were like shining, and she had like this huge smile, and she just went to my grandmother, which was like the one that were fighting the most, and she just walked to her, hugged her, and I was like, what? From everyone in the planet, this aunt is the last person that I imagined smiling ever. So I asked my cousin, what on earth happened to your mother? And he told me, she started A Course in Miracles. I was 17, and I was like, whatever that is, I just want to go.
Yes.
And then the very first day I read the first page of A Course in Miracles, like for 2 days I couldn't speak of how happy I was. Like it pretty much speaks. I don't recommend it to everyone because it's too intense, but I love it so much. Like it just really speaks about how none of this is real, how who you really are can never change, can never be vulnerable, so you can just chill.
Yes.
Pretty much, I mean, it's way more complicated.
The moral of the story
no?
is just chill.
Yes. And it was really interesting because from then on, I was really focused on just enjoying. Because all of the things that were fearful or that I should be scared about, I knew that it was just from the mind. And it was really beautiful because also by treating people, strangers, even if they didn't know anything about this, if you treated them as if nothing, as if they had no past and they were perfect, you know, as who they really are, these beautiful interactions came, I don't know, it just really became fun and paradise. And then 2 years after I went to India, and that's where it really just came down to earth, you know, how I mix it with interactions, because before it was something really personal. It was almost a secret because I was in high school, and of course you know.
Yes, we don't talk about these things in high school.
No, and my friends would stop talking to me, so it was like my secret of happiness, and nobody knew it. But then when I went to India and I was surrounded by people that were happy, were joyful, were meditating, then is when it really came down to earth for me, like to relationships and everything. And after that, it was just, I was gone, you know, like my mom tried to get me into college and I was like, no, this is my path. And wherever I go is something that you cannot take away from you. It's just how you see the world. So it's what you see in people and everything. So yeah, that's how I came to all of this.
So it's interesting. So you didn't want to go to college, and you went traveling.
It was a big struggle about the college thing because I even had like a surprise meeting with all of my family waiting for me, telling me how I was ruining my life. I was gonna be no one in life.
And the intervention.
Intervention. I didn't know the word in English.
You were totally ruining your life.
Yes, they did an intervention for me at Starbucks.
Of all the places to meet in Mexico, a Starbucks.
It's so sad. So the thing is, I really struggled with that. Like, I studied for 6 months in Mexico City, graphic design, and then they gave me the job in an Osho center, Osho meditation center. And when I compared both of them, I was like, oh no, screw this. And then I went to Brazil for a Tantra workshop.
Yes.
And then after Brazil, I felt so centered and so in peace, because after India, I really felt like I needed to be around these kind of people to keep it alive somehow.
Yes.
But then after Brazil, that was maybe 2 or 3 years later, I already felt like it was in me, like I already feel good. And the first thing that came to my mind as soon as I felt okay was like, okay, now I can go to college, because it was something that was really on the back of my mind, like I needed to do, you know, for my mom, for my dad, blah, blah, blah. So I came back to my hometown, I went to college. At the same time, I was leading meditations and doing sessions, and I did it for 2 years. I did the whole thing, but then it just came to a point where I had like a really traditional boyfriend that liked football and beer. You know, I had the traditional life, and I really came to a point where it was like, what am I doing here, you know? Who am I kidding? This is not my life. And if I finish my career, now I'm gonna have guilt and I'm gonna feel pushed to be a graphic designer because of everything my parents have paid. So I was like, okay, run now. So I just quit college and I broke up with my boyfriend. And after that, it was really beautiful because everyone saw me like a quitter. So no one expected anything from me anymore.
Amazing.
Yes,
is that how you do that?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's what I had been looking for forever. I was like, oh, I should have known before, you know. Because once you're a quitter, nobody cares about you, you know. Like nobody's pushing you. Nobody sees, oh, what she's doing, no, you know. Now, if I'm alive, that's enough for everyone, you know. Like for my parents, for my uncles, for my aunts. So it's perfect, yes. Yes, it's really, really delicious to have no expectations from your loved ones. You know, it's like finally. And now everyone knows me like this, you know. No one expects me to keep in touch. No one expects me to be there if they're gonna have a wedding. I might be there, but I might not, my friends. You know, I'm already like, nobody really thinks about me, so it's delicious.
And here you are.
Yes, and here I am.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Next time on Mindfulness of Doom, robots. We'll hear from World Happiness Festival experts about the future of technology and its role in supporting mindfulness and raising global consciousness. We don't have any real sponsors yet on Mindfulness of Doom, but we do have real fake sponsors. This episode of Mindfulness of Doom is brought to you by Giant Happiness Walls. Yes, giant happiness walls, using permanent architectural features in an attempt to explain life's most thoughtless and fleeting phenomenon. This episode of Mindfulness of Doom is also brought to you by Marketing Happiness. Yes, that's right, marketing happiness. It's a tough job and can make you miserable, but I'm sure everyone else will benefit from your personal sacrifice. And lastly, this episode is brought to you by Mexican Starbucks. Yes, Mexican Starbucks, hosting interventions for families concerned their children are too damn happy. Well, that's it for this episode of Mindfulness of Doom, and we'll see you next week! We invite you to like, subscribe, and rate our podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever. Have suggestions, music, or artwork for the show? Want to sponsor our podcast? Find our contact page and links to the items we talked about in this episode at www.mindfulnessofdoom.com. Become a supporter of our podcast at patreon.com/mindfulnessofdoom and get access to exclusive content that's not on the show.
This podcast is recorded in Miami, Florida. It is written, recorded, and edited by Brian Lemmerman and Corey Hardacre. Our music is provided by Pallet Town and Suitcase Music. They can be found at soundcloud.com/pallettown and at suitcasemusic.bandcamp.com. All poorly thought out opinions are ours. Nothing you hear in this podcast should be construed as professional medical advice. Go see a therapist, all of you.
Everyone saw me like a quitter, so no one expected anything from me anymore.
Amazing.
Yes,
Is that how you do that?
Yeah.
Wow.